My name is Dorothy Mitchell, and I'm 67 years old. If someone had told me 2 years ago that I would be standing in a federal courtroom watching my own sister being led away in handcuffs for what she did to our mother, I would have laughed in their face. But here I am, and what I'm about to share with you is something that still wakes me up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, wondering how I could have been so blind for so long. I need to start from the beginning, back when our family was still whole, still happy, still trusting each other the way families are supposed to. My mother, Evelyn Mitchell, is 89 years old now. She was a school teacher for 42 years in our small town of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Everyone knew Miss Evelyn. She taught 3 generations of kids how to read, how to do math, how to believe in themselves. When she retired at 70, the whole town threw her a parade. That's the kind of woman my mother is. My father passed away 8 years ago from a heart attack. It was sudden, unexpected, and it devastated all of us. But Mom handled it with grace, the way she handled everything. She stayed in their house, the same house where my sister Karen and I grew up, and she lived independently for years. She drove herself to church every Sunday, played bridge with her friends on Wednesdays, and volunteered at the library on Fridays. Then, about 3 years ago, things started to change. Mom began forgetting small things. She'd call me and ask if I'd seen her glasses when they were sitting right on top of her head. She'd go to the grocery store and come home with 5 cartons of milk because she couldn't remember she'd already bought some. Her doctor diagnosed her with early-stage dementia. He said it was mild, that with proper care she could maintain her quality of life for many years. That's when my sister Karen stepped in. Karen is 5 years younger than me, 62 now. We were never particularly close growing up. She was the pretty one, the charming one, the one who always knew how to work a room. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who stayed close to home while Karen moved to California to chase her dreams of becoming an actress. Those dreams never quite panned out, and Karen spent most of her adult life bouncing between failed businesses, failed marriages, and failed schemes. But when Mom got sick, Karen suddenly reappeared. She moved back to Cedar Falls from Los Angeles, saying she wanted to take care of our mother. She gave up her apartment, her life in California, everything. At first, I was touched. I thought maybe Karen had finally grown up, finally realized what was important. She moved into Mom's house and became her full-time caregiver. I offered to help, offered to split the duties, but Karen waved me off. She said I had my own life, my own family, my husband Richard, who was recovering from knee surgery at the time. She insisted she could handle it. And honestly, I was relieved. I feel guilty admitting that now, but it's true. Taking care of someone with dementia is exhausting, and I was grateful that Karen was willing to do it. For the first year, everything seemed fine. Mom was stable. Her dementia wasn't progressing as quickly as the doctors had feared. Karen seemed devoted, posting photos on Facebook of her and Mom baking cookies, going for walks, watching old movies together. Everyone praised Karen for being such a wonderful daughter. Then I started noticing things. It began with money. Mom had always been financially comfortable. Dad had a good pension, they'd paid off the house decades ago, and Mom had her teacher's retirement plus Social Security. She wasn't wealthy, but she had enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life, probably around $400,000 in savings plus the house. One day, about 18 months ago, I stopped by to visit and found Mom agitated. She kept saying something about her checkbook, about numbers that didn't make sense. Karen laughed it off, said Mom was just confused, that she'd been having a bad day. But something about the way Karen said it made me uneasy. The next week, I tried to take Mom to her regular hair appointment, but when we got there, they said her account was closed due to non-payment. Mom had been going to that salon for 30 years. She'd never missed a payment in her life. When I asked Karen about it, she got defensive. She said she'd been handling all of Mom's finances now, that it was too confusing for Mom, and that there must have been some mix-up at the salon. She promised to sort it out. But the mix-ups kept happening. Mom's favorite charity, the one she donated to every month for 2 decades, sent a letter saying they hadn't received a donation in 6 months. Her car insurance lapsed. Her property taxes were paid late, with a penalty. Every time I brought something up, Karen had an explanation. Mom's accounts were being reorganized. The bank made an error. The mail got lost. I wanted to believe her. She was my sister. Why would she lie? Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in March. I'd stopped by unannounced to bring Mom some of her favorite lemon cookies from the bakery downtown. Karen's car wasn't in the driveway, which was unusual. She rarely left Mom alone. I let myself in with my key and found Mom sitting in the living room in her nightgown, even though it was 2 p.m. The house was cold, the thermostat had been turned way down, and Mom looked thin, thinner than I'd ever seen her. "Mama, when did you eat last?" I asked her. She looked at me with those cloudy blue eyes and said, "Karen says I already ate, but I don't remember eating. I'm so hungry, Dorothy." My heart clenched. I went to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. It was nearly empty. Some condiments, a half-empty carton of milk, a package of cheese that had gone moldy. The pantry was the same. A few cans of soup, some stale crackers, nothing substantial. I made Mom a sandwich with what I could find and sat with her while she ate. She devoured it like she hadn't had a proper meal in days. When Karen came home an hour later, loaded down with shopping bags from the mall, I confronted her. "Karen, why is there no food in this house? Why is Mom sitting here hungry?" Karen's face went through about 5 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise, then annoyance, then something that looked almost like fear, and finally that charming smile she'd perfected over the years. "Oh, Dorothy, you're being dramatic. I just haven't had time to go grocery shopping. I was going to go tomorrow. And Mom forgets she's eaten. You know how she is. She probably had a big breakfast and just doesn't remember. But Mom was sitting right there and she said, clear as day, I didn't have breakfast. Karen said we were out of eggs." Karen's smile flickered. "See? She's confused. We had eggs yesterday. I didn't push it further that day, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention. I visited more often, sometimes without calling first. What I found was disturbing. Mom was losing weight rapidly. Her clothes hung off her like she was wearing someone else's wardrobe. Her skin had a grayish pallor. She was tired all the time, sleeping for hours during the day. When I asked Karen about it, she said Mom's dementia was progressing, that this was normal, but I'd done my research. I'd talked to Mom's doctor, who said that while dementia patients could experience appetite changes, the rapid weight loss he was seeing in Mom's charts was concerning. He wanted to run tests, but Karen kept canceling the appointments, saying Mom was too tired or too confused to go. I also noticed that Karen's lifestyle seemed to have improved dramatically. She was wearing designer clothes. She'd bought a new car. She was talking about a vacation to Europe she was planning, all while supposedly living off her meager savings and the small stipend Mom's estate was paying her for caregiving. One night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Richard, staring at the ceiling, and I let myself think the unthinkable. What if Karen was stealing from Mom? What if she was deliberately neglecting her? What if my own sister was slowly killing our mother? I felt sick just thinking it. This was Karen, the little girl I'd helped raise, the sister I'd defended against bullies, the family member I'd welcomed back with open arms. How could I suspect her of something so monstrous? But the evidence was piling up, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called an elder law attorney. Her name was Patricia Okonkwo, and she worked for a nonprofit that specialized in protecting seniors from financial exploitation. When I explained my concerns, she didn't dismiss me. She said what I was describing sounded like a textbook case of elder abuse. "There are several types," she explained. "Financial exploitation, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. Sometimes they occur together. And unfortunately, the perpetrators are often family members, people the victim trusts." She gave me a checklist of warning signs: unexplained weight loss, sudden changes in financial situation, isolation from other family members, a caregiver who is defensive or evasive about the elder's care, a caregiver whose lifestyle improves while the elder's declines. I checked every single box. Patricia advised me to document everything. Take photos, keep a journal, save any financial records I could find. She said that elder abuse cases were notoriously difficult to prosecute because the victims were often too confused or too scared to testify, so physical evidence was crucial. I started documenting. Every time I visited Mom, I took photos Photos of the empty refrigerator, photos of Mom's increasingly gaunt face, photos of the pile of unopened mail that included what looked like past due notices. I kept a journal of every conversation, every excuse Karen gave, every inconsistency I noticed. But I knew I needed more. I needed proof of what was happening when I wasn't there. That's when I bought the cameras. I bought 3 small wireless cameras, the kind that look like ordinary household objects. One was disguised as a phone charger, one as a smoke detector, and one as a digital clock. I told myself I was doing this to protect Mom, that I had every right to know what was happening in her own home. Installing them was terrifying. I had to wait for a day when Karen was out and Mom was napping. My hands shook the entire time. What if Karen found them? What if I was wrong about everything and I was just being a paranoid old woman? But I thought about Mom sitting in that cold house, hungry, confused, and I kept going. I put one camera in the kitchen, one in the living room, and one in Mom's bedroom. I set them up to stream to an app on my phone. Then I went home and waited. The first few days, I saw nothing unusual. Karen brought Mom meals, helped her to the bathroom, watched TV with her. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Karen really was just overwhelmed and disorganized, not malicious. Then came Thursday. I was at home, folding laundry, when I got an alert on my phone that there was motion in Mom's bedroom. I opened the app and watched. Karen walked into Mom's room where Mom was lying in bed. Mom reached out her hand and said, "Karen, I'm hungry. Can I have some lunch?" Karen's response made my blood run cold. "You already ate, Mother. Remember? You had a big lunch. You're just confused." But I had been watching the kitchen camera. Mom hadn't eaten anything since a small bowl of oatmeal at 7 a.m. It was now 2 p.m. "But my stomach hurts," Mom said, her voice weak. "It hurts because it's empty." Karen sighed, this dramatic, put-upon sigh. "Fine. I'll bring you some crackers later. But you need to stop being so difficult. Do you know how much I've sacrificed to take care of you? And this is the thanks I get?" Mom started to cry. These quiet, helpless tears streaming down her wrinkled face. And Karen just walked out of the room, closing the door behind her. I sat there on my bed, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I had just watched my sister verbally abuse our mother and deliberately withhold food from her. An 89-year-old woman with dementia. Our own mother, but it got worse. Over the next week, I watched Karen systematically neglect and gaslight our mother. She would tell Mom she'd already eaten when she hadn't. She'd tell Mom she'd already had her medication when she hadn't. She'd leave Mom sitting in soiled clothes for hours, claiming she didn't notice. And through it all, she'd complain about how hard her life was, how ungrateful Mom was, how no one appreciated her sacrifice. I also caught glimpses of Karen on her phone, talking to someone about the house and the accounts and when this is finally over. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I heard enough to understand that Karen was making plans for when Mom was gone. Then came the footage that made me call the police. It was a Sunday afternoon. Karen was in Mom's bedroom, supposedly helping her get dressed. But something was wrong. Karen was being rough, yanking Mom's arms through sleeves, pulling her hair while pretending to brush it. Mom cried out in pain, and Karen snapped, "Shut up! Just shut up. You've ruined my life. You know that? If you had just died when you were supposed to, none of this would be happening. If you had just died when you were supposed to." I played that sentence back 5 times to make sure I'd heard it correctly. If you had just died when you were supposed to. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything but watch that footage over and over. My own sister, wishing our mother dead. Starving her, neglecting her, maybe even hoping she would just give up and die so Karen could inherit the house and whatever money was left. I called Patricia Okonkwo first thing Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, I was sitting in the Cedar Falls Police Department, showing Detective Marcus Webb everything I had. Detective Webb was a serious man in his 50s, with kind eyes that hardened considerably as he watched my footage. When it was over, he looked at me and said, "Mrs. Mitchell, what you've documented here is criminal elder abuse. Your mother is in danger. We need to act quickly." Things moved fast after that. Detective Webb contacted Adult Protective Services. They conducted an emergency welfare check on Mom that afternoon, with police present. When they arrived, they found Mom severely malnourished, dehydrated, and with bed sores on her back that Karen had been hiding. She was rushed to the hospital. Karen was arrested at the scene. She screamed that I was lying, that I was jealous, that I was trying to steal Mom's money. But they had my footage. They had Mom's medical records showing a 40-pound weight loss in 18 months. And they had the financial records that the police obtained with a warrant. What those records revealed was staggering. Over the past 18 months, Karen had transferred nearly $200,000 from Mom's accounts into her own. She'd forged Mom's signature on checks, used Mom's credit cards for personal purchases, even taken out a home equity line of credit on Mom's house without her knowledge. She'd been planning to sell the house once Mom died and pocket the entire proceeds. But the worst part was what the medical examination revealed. Mom wasn't just malnourished from neglect, she had elevated levels of certain medications in her system. Karen had been giving her sedatives, not enough to kill her outright, but enough to keep her docile, confused, and sleeping most of the day. Enough to accelerate her cognitive decline. Enough to make her easier to control. The doctors said if Mom had stayed in Karen's care for another few months, she likely would have died. From malnutrition, from overmedication, from the general deterioration of her health, Karen wasn't just stealing from our mother. She was slowly killing her. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Karen's defense attorney tried to paint me as a vindictive sister who was jealous of Karen's close relationship with our mother. He claimed the cameras were an invasion of privacy, that the footage had been edited, that Mom's condition was simply the natural progression of her dementia. But the evidence was overwhelming. The financial records showed a clear pattern of theft, the medical records showed deliberate harm, and the footage spoke for itself. I had to testify. I had to sit in that witness stand, look at my sister, and describe everything I'd seen. Karen stared at me the whole time with this expression of pure hatred. This was the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager I'd covered for when she snuck out at night, the woman I'd lent money to more times than I could count. But when I looked at the photos of Mom in evidence, so thin and frail and scared, I remembered why I was there. The jury deliberated for 2 days. They found Karen guilty on all counts. Financial exploitation of an elderly person, criminal neglect, aggravated assault, even attempted murder, because the sedatives constituted poisoning. The judge sentenced her to 18 years in federal prison. Karen collapsed, sobbing, begging for mercy. She said she was sorry, she was desperate, she never meant to hurt anyone. Maybe some part of that was even true. But it didn't change what she'd done to our mother. That was 14 months ago. Mom is living with me now. We converted our den into a bedroom for her, and we have a part-time aide who comes in to help during the day. Mom's dementia has progressed, partly due to what Karen did to her, but she has good days and bad days. On good days, she knows who I am, and we talk about old times. On bad days, she calls me by her own mother's name and asks when Daddy is coming home from work. But she's safe, she's fed, she's loved. Last month, we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, and Mom turned to me with unusual clarity in her eyes. "Dorothy," she said, "you saved my life, didn't you?" I didn't know what to say. I just held her hand and nodded. "I remember being so scared," she said slowly. "I remember being hungry all the time. I remember Karen being angry at me and not understanding why. But then you came, and the scary part ended. I started crying then. I couldn't help it. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I let it go on so long." Mom shook her head. "You saw it when no one else did. That's what matters. You listened to what I couldn't say out loud." We sat there together until the sun went down, not talking, just being mother and daughter the way we'd been for 67 years. I share this story not for sympathy and not for vindication. I share it because elder abuse is more common than any of us want to believe. 1 in 10 Americans over 65 will experience some form of elder abuse in their lifetime. In most cases, the abuser is someone they trust. A family member, a caregiver, someone who is supposed to protect them. The warning signs are often subtle. Unexpected weight loss, sudden changes in financial situation, a caregiver who is defensive, secretive, or who isolates the elder from other family and friends, an elder who seems fearful or withdrawn, missing belongings. Unexplained injuries. Changes in legal documents. If you see these signs, trust your instincts. Document everything. Talk to medical professionals, to social workers, to attorneys who specialize in elder law, and if necessary, contact the authorities. I know it's hard. I know it feels like a betrayal to suspect someone you love of hurting someone you love even more. I lived with that guilt, that agony of suspicion, that fear of being wrong. But I would rather have been wrong and embarrassed than right and silent. I would rather have Karen hate me forever than lose my mother to her greed and cruelty. Mom is 89 years old. On good days, she still laughs at her own jokes, still hums hymns from her childhood, still tells me I'm her favorite daughter even though I'm her only daughter. She may not have many years left, but the years she has will be spent in safety and dignity. And that's worth everything. If you're watching this and you're worried about an elderly person in your life, please don't ignore that worry. Be the voice for someone who may have lost theirs. Be brave enough to ask hard questions. Be willing to make difficult choices. Because somewhere out there might be another Evelyn, another mother or grandmother who needs someone to notice, someone to care, someone to be brave enough to act. Don't let that person suffer in silence.